order to understand gender, it is important to understand the difference between biological sex and gender. For this distinction, we have turned to Dr. Ritz at the Northern Ontario School of Medicine.
In the kind of research that I've been doing, we try to make a very clear distinction between sex and gender, and not to use those terms interchangeably. My understanding of sex is that it is the very biologically determined pieces of our bodies. So things like that are determined by our chromosomal complement, that would be sex. The anatomical variation between males and females that arises based on those genetic factors and the hormonal variations and other kinds of things, those would be sex. Whereas I understand gender to be a much more social construct and a product of those male and female bodies interacting in a social environment. And so I think of sex as being, I would use the terms male and female to talk about sex, whereas with gender I would tend to talk about masculinity and femininity and about men and women when I'm talking about gender. So I see gender as being a much more socially constructed and a product of our social environments, and the way that we choose to present ourselves and the way that we are constrained in our ability to present ourselves in a social environment depending on the cultural expectations of males and females. My own perspective, I think, my own understanding is that someone who cross-dresses may have any number of different combinations of biological sex and gender identity and sexual orientation. So you could totally have a person with a male body who identifies as a man, whose sexual orientation is towards women, but who likes to wear women's clothes summer all the time. Or that male body could identify as female and have a different sexual orientation, so that desire to dress outside of one's gender, the gender norms in a society may not have any connection to those other things, but there are probably certain more common patterns, but they don't necessarily need to be associated with one another.
There are women, there are lesbian women, but also other women who actually live their lives as men in Sudbury. I'm quite aware of that, right? And there also are men who live the bulk of their lives as women too, right? And gendered clothing is a crucial part of that.
And one of those came in the body of a 4-year-old little girl. I was walking home one day, and she was playing outside with her little friend or whatever. She was the cutest little girl ever, and she's like, "Excuse me, are you a boy or a girl?" I didn't answer because I thought, I don't know what to say to, because I'm thinking her parents could have something else they want to teach her, and so I didn't answer. And then she's like, "Excuse me, are you a boy or a girl?" And I didn't answer again. So then the third time she got upset. She's like, "Hey, you!" She's like, "Excuse me, I asked you a question," and I could still see her little hands on her hips. She's like, "Are you a boy or are you a girl?" And at that point I had to answer. I'm like, "Come on now, you can't." I couldn't ignore that, And I said, "Well, I have the body of a boy, but inside I'm a girl." She's like, "Oh, okay." And then she went off and she played, and she was happy with the answer I had given her. And that kind of answer, that kind of question really, I knew it was from the heart. It wasn't from a place of judgment. It was from a place of actual wanting to know, and that was one of my better moments. Sometimes we have the label, but we don't have the definition of what that label entitles, and sometimes the label doesn't really go with how we feel, right? I think that's one of the bigger issues in the transgender communities is labels. There are some people who don't quite identify with being a man or a woman, so they're not really transsexuals in the sense that they don't want the operations because they're really harsh, and once you start hormone replacement therapy, you're on it for the rest of your life. So it's not, and if you're a trans woman, which is a male to female, then you get parts of you cut off and stuff, and male to female to male as well. So it's kind of like it's you really have to do the research to find out how exactly you fit into a transgender community, or at least how to label yourself, right? Sometimes I just use the label transgender to please other people, but there are a lot of days when I'm not a man and I'm not a woman, I'm just there. I don't conform to any stereotypes, although I do have more feminine mannerisms and attractions as far as like my hobbies and stuff goes. Like I knit, I crochet, I sew, everything that's stereotypical. But what I don't really, to me, they're not just women related stuff. Because men do sew and men do knit and they do crochet. But society has this really, I'm going to use the word perverse for lack of a better term, but they have this really perverse version of what a man should be and what a woman should be. I think that masculinity is not just testosterone and femininity is not just estrogen. There is more to it than that.
Everybody wants love.
Yes.
Everybody's searching for love.
Yes.
Do you find that finding yourself and being true to yourself has made it difficult?
Sorry?
It's okay. Do you find that now that you've found yourself and you feel comfortable, that love is...
Well, becoming who I am it's been a real soul-searching journey, and I've learned to like myself a lot more than I did before. But to actually go out and to find a partner is one of the hardest things I believe that I would ever have to do. Because people today are not, I don't know, they're different. I can't explain it. It's kind of like it has to do with I wouldn't know where to start with a sexual relationship because I'm not comfortable with the body that I have. I have boy parts that I don't want, and part of some of the physical aspects of being transgendered for me was smaller genitals than regular men or other men, and so it's kind of like, where do I search? Do I search in the straight community for a man who wants a woman, or do I go in the gay community for a guy that wants a guy? But being transgendered, I'm not accepted in either community. Straight people think that I'm gay, and gay people don't want me because they're tired of the feminization of the gay movement, for lack of a better word, in the sense that I get discriminated a lot in the gay community because people think I'm a drag queen. And although, yes, once upon a time I was, now this is who I am. So it's very different. So it's kind of like, I don't know where to search. And labels for people in our society is so important. And I mean, it's not just two souls connecting like it should be. It's who has the best body and how they maintain that body. And well, I'm sorry, but I in my mind, I'm a beautiful woman with the right things at the right places, but nature made it so that it's not like that. I look more like a bearded lady, and that is something that unfortunately I've come to accept. But to find someone that'll accept that is hard, right?
Did your parents try to push you into one role or another, or were they fairly free to let you play with what you wanted to play with?
Well, that caused a lot of division, I would say, in my parents' point of view, because my mom didn't care. As long as I was happy and I was safe, I wasn't doing any wrong, she didn't care. My father, on the other hand, he kind of tuned me out when I was 4 years old. He just, from the age of 4, he wouldn't talk to me, he wouldn't even look at me. I was nothing in his life. I was just this big embarrassment, and he didn't want anything to do with me.
Do you have any other brothers or sisters?
I have 2 older